Thank you, Chair. This is an incredible celebration. 100 years of a prestigious international journal. And it's great to be here to celebrate this event with you. Because as editors, we are custodians of the journal, ever mindful of the heritage that we have heard about today, and preserving and improving that to pass on to future generations with a constant vision of improving health care. And as an editor, your journal is only judged by the last issue. So there is a constant look as to the direction and the future and what lies ahead. And I would like to peer ahead in this talk to raise a few ideas, really to stimulate your imagination, because I believe that it's up to you as surgeons to help form the future of surgical publication. Putting up the statement of interest, I need to add one further interest to that. And that's that I grew up in Rochester, Minnesota, a city of surgeons, though city is perhaps too generous a term. And I was 5 years old before I stopped calling the postman Dr. Postman and the milkman Dr. Milkman, because I assumed that everybody was a surgeon. So my aims this afternoon are to show some of the factors that have brought us to where we are today in health publishing, to suggest how what has happened in the past may bear on the future, and discuss the implications for surgical research and publication. I hope by the end of this session you'll feel comfortable understanding how we got to where we are, be aware of the changes and the opportunities that they will present you for the future. I hope that you'll be able to use this information to guide your own research and your own choice of journals for submission. And finally, so that you can participate actively to create new models of surgical publication that are going to maximize benefits, thinking of researchers, of surgeons, of patients, and in terms of health systems. I think, first of all, there is sometimes a bit of an aura or a myth around journals. Journals are a vehicle. We are a means to an end. And really, what's important is the research that's being published, the timeliness of the research question, the quality of the science, the ability to inform care, and the transferability of the technology. By way of an example, I'd like to take you back to 1846, to Boston and the demonstration of ether. Jacob Bigelow, a surgeon at Mass General, was there, and he recorded events. They were subsequently published in what was to become the New England Journal of Medicine. But actually, before this was published, he wrote to his friends, including a friend in London, as we heard this morning. It took 6 weeks to cross the Atlantic on a mail packet, the SS Aurora. Docked in Liverpool, the letter traveled by stage to London. But it was so timely and eagerly awaited by people like John Snow, who were experimenting with anesthesia, that within a week of its arrival, ether was used in London. Not surprisingly, within a month it had been used in Scotland, but perhaps more remarkable is that in just 6 months it had been used in Malvern. So we need to be aware that great ideas are not necessarily going to be contained by journals, and the effect of social media in communicating and in effecting practice change that is likely to become an even bigger factor in the future. Looking at the evolution of publishing, I think there are 5 strands that leap out. One of those is speed. And if we look at the drivers, speed comes from surgeons, from the researchers and users. It comes because of the changing technology that we have witnessed, but it also comes from external forces, such as funders of research. We have seen changes in specialization, again, driven by surgeons, enabled by technology. Access has altered dramatically and continues to do so, driven by the needs of surgeons, by the technology that is available to access published literature, by funders who now want to see publicly funded research available, but also by the general public. And I think the general public are going to play a larger and larger role in how research is published and made available. We've also seen a big change in features. We've gone from the traditional paper journal to all sorts of variations. And that's because researchers and users want it, because there's the technology with which it can be delivered, and because the public are demanding it. And it makes sense that if you have a message, to communicate that message, there will be different vehicles that are more effective for different populations. You will reach some fellow surgeons through a published paper journal, others through a smartphone. You may find that actually the general public find a podcast or a video a more effective way of understanding your work. And finally, research is changing, and that's being reflected in publication, driven by surgeons and also driven by funders who want to see the most efficient investment of research for the improvement of care. Well, if we analyze each of these individually and we look at speed of publication, people don't want to wait for ages to have research published. There is competition not only amongst authors, but also amongst journals to see who can get a paper out first on a similar topic. You will have witnessed that over the last 2 weeks with H7N9 publications coming out of China. Different publication methods have made this easier. With online publication now, we can change an editorial within 48 hours and get it up online. This has necessitated different models of peer review, evolving from the traditional pro bono model to now paying reviewers. And if we want a 48-hour review, we pay reviewers £200 to provide it. In addition, some ideas are important, and that can command faster publication. Many journals respond by offering expedited services. At The Lancet, our fast-track system is a 48-hour peer review, expecting the author to do a 48-hour revision and publication online within 4 weeks of submission. And surgery is changing, so it makes sense that publication changes to reflect that. One obvious change is in specialization. And here, in publication, there needs to be a balance between the focus of the specialized community and the sustainability in terms of quality and volume for that specialty. In addition, the journal has to reach certain standards to be registered on Medline so that those publishing in it can make sure that their work, no matter how specialized, can still reach a larger audience. And we're seeing specialization not so much just in the subdivision of traditional categories of practice, but in new hybrids where specialization crosses over disciplines between surgery and non-surgical areas. That also gives rise to the opportunity of chimeric publications. And in the future, we may see more and more journals devoted to that exciting boundary area where new ideas are going to pioneer new types of research. Access is also changing, and I imagine that as I speak, I am competing with several smartphones, iPads, and laptops. And that's just how life is now. We did a poll in the first quarter of this year, and it shows that half of our readers are using a laptop or a smartphone on a daily basis. Smartphones, particularly in the US. A tablet, 1/3 of people will use on a daily basis. And if we break this down by category, we actually find surgeons are right in the midst of the curve. So surgeons are using the same technology as everybody else, and as that technology increases, so it will within this community. So we've seen new formats to access published literature. Podcasts, ebooks are all established history now. But being imaginative, think what possibilities surgery has for future publication as technology develops. Wouldn't it be fascinating to see holograms, 3D printing, wonderful ways of communicating the richness of the craft? Virtual simulators, so that readers anywhere can actually experience what you are talking about in your research paper. And of course, why should journals just be words? The video journal, I think, will become a more popular item, have a wide audience, and be easily dubbed into different languages. Features have also changed. I believe that increasingly, you as researchers will select your journal based on the range of services that add value to your study. First of all, you want the journal to provide context. So it's getting your idea out more widely, either through editorials, through other paired publications which bundle the message that you're sending with similar papers. How this can be projected more to the people who need to make decisions. For some of you, that will be policymakers. For others of you, that will be frontline clinical staff. Web material will certainly play a role in this. It already does in terms of appendices, and the almost limitless availability of web space means I think we'll see more and more videos going up associated with surgical papers, and of course blogs. And some of our most frequently visited items are videos associated with surgery papers. And it helps to reinforce the power of the visual message. The general public who may not appreciate all the details within a scientific paper can certainly share in the amazement of seeing a video that shows the result of a surgical procedure and the dramatic effects that that can have on individual people. Media relations is another important service that will be expected from journals, and not just conventional media relations through the press, but getting your message out through Twitter, Facebook, and the like. So publication models are changing. We've seen pay to publish, we've seen pay to read, but what will the next stage look like when it's neither pay to publish nor pay to read? Peer review is likely to change with this. Traditionally, we've had peer review pre-publication, but in some of the physical sciences, it happens after publication. Maybe that will change in clinical specialties. Perhaps reviews will end up being permanently linked to articles and the opportunity for ongoing appraisal as one finds through blogs. We may well see institutions publishing their own online journals, perhaps even departmental postings, where the driver is getting credit for primacy of the idea and for making the material widely available, with less concern about which title it's published under. So I think there's going to be a whole new generation of metrics to guide this. Impact factor has become very overrated and unreliable in really trying to establish what is quality, what papers are going to affect change. And there may well not be a sole metric across all of health. There may be different metrics in different specialities, which again will help drive people towards one type of publication or another. And research is also changing. So with some trepidation, I put up my favorite word here, trials. And if we look at clinical trials in surgery, there's been a fairly constant trend going back for 15 years. In fact, data for 2011 suggests there's actually been a drop. But that's out of step with what we're seeing elsewhere in healthcare. And if we look at general medical journals, 60% of what New England Journal and The Lancet publish are randomized controlled trials. One of the arguments behind randomized controlled trials is that funders are going to want to get definitive results to questions and seek this as one methodology that can provide that. So it means that people who are not submitting randomized controlled trials are competing for a smaller proportion of pages. And that proportion has shrunk over the last 10 years as the proportion of RCTs has increased. So funders are going to want to see important questions answered definitively. They're going to want to see outcomes that aren't driven by the researcher or perhaps an industry concern, but outcomes that are going to be meaningful to clinicians, to patients, to to policymakers, and also to payers. And these are going to be increasingly complex, and that will have an advantage of encouraging further collaboration, which by itself will enhance transferability of the research that you're doing. As science changes, it's important that that informs surgical research so that you can capitalize on advances in other fields. This may be from molecular medicine to global health. And this type of combination science is going to open up incredible opportunities, both for research and for publication. There's going to be a wide range of collaboration available. And as a result, a wide range of journals that will be interested in surgical research. And I think because of this broad landscape, it will actually help to sustain super specialization. Well, at the beginning, we pointed out at the various drivers of these 5 strands of evolution in publishing. Common to all of them was the surgeon. The surgeon as a researcher, the surgeon as a practitioner, but I think also increasingly we need to see the surgeon as the person who is posing the clinical questions. What is really important? What questions do surgeons need to know the answers to that can then inform future research? I hope, standing beside the surgeon, you will allow editors to join you, so that together we can look at ways to improve research methodology, that editors will continue to express an interest in getting surgical papers into general medical journals where they can be read by a wider audience, and that general medical journals will continue to pay special attention to surgery as to any other important discipline by having regular themed issues, as we have started to do over the last few years. But whatever the changes in the future of publishing, I suspect that the philosophical underpinning will remain the same. As Rickman Godley wrote in the introduction to the first edition of the British Journal of Surgery, it is important for surgical ideas to be shared, because that's the way you develop the science of surgery. And Thomas Wackley, when he started The Lancet, set out with a mission that medical journals need to inform, to reform, and to entertain. And that is a shared mission for the future. Thank you.